Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to What's the Tea? I am Kamal Belgrave here with my best friend and film extraordinaire, Sasha Archer.
Good day,
We're
everyone.
here tonight to discuss the pros and cons of Wide Sargasso Sea, the film. Let's get right into it then.
Sure.
Sasha Archer, what do you think about this film, Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rice?
I'm not sure. I'm a little ambivalent. There's some good points and some bad points about it.
Okay, well, good points for you. One thing I noticed was the scenery. What say you on that?
Yeah, I thought the scenery was very effective in the movie. One of the whole things in the story is how Mr. Rochester supposedly feels oppressed by the Jamaican environment that he finds himself in, and I think the movie does a very good job of creating this very heavy, oppressive atmosphere, especially in the scene where they're going up to the honeymoon home in the mountains, and the forest looks at one point it looks very light and eerie when Antoinette is speaking. As soon as she stops and she moves away, it gets very heavy, and the sound of the crickets in the background gets a little louder, and it gets very dark and very heavy. So I think that was very effective.
You mentioned Jamaica. Anything specific stands out with Jamaican?
Accent?
You mentioned accent. Let's talk about the Jamaican accent. Do you think it was well represented in this film?
I don't. I think the accents were deplorable. I don't think they were very authentic at all. I think that might be one thing the book has over the movie. I heard, well, not that I'm an expert on Jamaican accents, but I think the one person who had a fairly acceptable accent was Christopher.
Yes, I was about to mention Christopher.
Who was the butler, Nelson? That was
Yes,
his name.
that was
His
his name.
accent was not Jamaican by any stretch of the imagination. And then Christopher wasn't even Jamaican, really. She was supposed to be from Martinique, so the
Yes. And
authenticity of the accent was a little...
a little shaky,
A
shaky.
little-
What else? About the book. And I know we're talking about the movie, but in reading this book, it is a quite thick book, you would say, compared to the timeline as the movie. Would you say the timeline of the movie was advantageous to it, or did you say it subtracted from the essence of the book?
I think it, yes and no. Given the time constraints I assume the makers of the film had, I could understand why they had to condense certain parts of the story and alter other parts of the story.
Yes, tell me some new things.
One of the things that I noticed was how condensed the story of her childhood was.
Yes,
It was very brief, very perfunctory. They just gave you that information kind of like a shotgun, like a machine gun, and they just glossed over a lot of the things that were important.
Yes.
Like, we didn't even know who Pierre was.
Who was Pierre?
Exactly.
Did they even mention his name in the picture? I didn't
They mentioned his name, but after he was seen on camera. We didn't know who
this little boy.
Just this little boy in bed.
And you mentioned the beginning, and for me, that is the crux of understanding the development of her character.
I agree.
Do you think the film did it justice?
They tried their best with the time that they were given, but because they cut out so much of her childhood, they missed a lot of her backstory as a character. They missed a lot of her driving force.
To be the woman she became.
Yeah, and
let's talk a little bit about the woman she became, her character. Did you think the people who did the character choices made a good choice in selecting her as the character for Antoinette?
The character or the actor?
The actor.
The actress?
Sorry.
The actress, initially I thought her voice was a little wooden. I thought she wasn't the most dynamic actress. But by the end of the movie, I think she was really effective at evoking this wild woman sort of, I don't know,
persona.
Yeah, she was. I actually believed that she was this crazy, untamed, wild fairy creature, and she was equal parts that and lovable at the same time. I could understand why Mr. Rochester would fall in love with this wild Caribbean fairy woman.
Girl, and we're going to come to this. Backstage, we had contention about this character, Mr. Rochester, and book portrays him as this hard man that you would not like. But I found interesting in the movie is that they didn't portray him as this mean, rigid person, they actually added compassion. What do you think that did? Do you think that was advantageous again? Did it help the story as it was supposed to help it? Or do you prefer, or do you think Rochester being this rigid, heartless man was pro the message that was being sent by the author?
I don't know. For me, when I read the book, it was easier for me to understand Rochester's actions. I could just chalk it up to him being a bad person. But for me in the movie, given that they were trying to, you know, obscure his moral, wherever his moral center lay, I was a little confused. I couldn't quite tell what was driving his decisions. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
You say confused, I find it interesting. I like, as a avid reader myself, I like when I could have some sort of free reign in my understanding of the character. In the movie, it allowed me to see a different side of Rochester, and it made me feel like empathy towards him. That I understood how a man taken from his home, regardless of the intention, he left. Okay, let's say he left his house. He left where he lived, his comfort, to find happiness elsewhere. Yeah.
To find property.
Happiness.
Okay.
You call it property, I call it happiness. Let's remember that Antoinette too was searching for happiness, and she did at one point in this story find happiness in this man. So let's not downplay this man's character, shall we?
Carry on.
Yes. So understand that he left comfort to seek property, happiness elsewhere, and he started to find it in this woman who, again, the book portrayed, and it clearly stated that he didn't like her. The movie, however, showed that he grew to like her. Yeah, and they built, in the movie, they built trust. They mentioned it explicitly. I trust you, you trust me. That's what he said, and she agreed. So she then lied to him about her past, lied by withholding information. How would you feel if that was you in his position?
I would be hurt.
Yes.
But after hearing everything that went into her tragic history, I think I would find it in myself to understand why she would feel compelled to tell a lie. And she also said in the movie, when he asked, he said, "You lied to me." She said, "Because they told me to."
Okay.
And I think one of the main things about the movie is how powerless, especially white women, are in this society. Because they're very dependent on the men that they're married to, the men that come and marry them and then leave them alone and maroon them and isolate them and then just disappear.
Going along with the setting the time frame.
Exactly. So I feel like she didn't have much of a choice, and I think a man from that time should understand how little choice she had. If you know, she when he first came and she was saying out loud, you know, maybe I won't marry him after all, her aunt tells her it's not that you have a choice. So the absence of choice is a big thing in the movie, and I think he should be, as a character from that time, he should be able to understand it and forgive her.
So do you think then that the characterization of Rochester again was a benefit, or did it subtract from the whole meaning of the book? Having this doubt, or creating this doubt that you claim, this confusion, do you think that again was beneficial overall, or did it subtract from?
I think it might have been beneficial in terms of making the movie perhaps more entertaining.
Yeah.
Because if his character was just this deep, dark, broody person, I don't think anybody in mass audiences wouldn't be driven to watch the movie. So to make it into this sort of tragic love story would make it more appealing to a wider audience.
And you mentioned wider audience, something that we skimmed out earlier that I think we should talk about, and is language. In the book again is heavily based in Jamaica, and the accent, the language used is one of the identifiers of the Jamaican setting. Again, in the book, and I know we're not really looking at the book, but to read Jamaican accent may be difficult to some people that don't have a Caribbean, especially a Jamaican background.
Yeah.
For me as a Barbadian, it's hard to read Barbadian Bajan because we don't write it. It's only spoken. Do you think that, for me, I don't think it was, this is a con, it wasn't, as you've mentioned, it wasn't fairly represented, but the pro to that is that the English-based accent used allowed the video itself to be more accessible to people that would not be familiar with the accent.
I completely agree.
Right. So I just think that we should mention that because that's something that we skimmed.
Because I when I first read Wide Sargasso Sea in fifth form or fourth form, I had to read the first 2 pages 10 times.
So you could
So
understand.
I could understand exactly what it was that was being said. I think that was the first time I ever read Creole.
Yeah.
It was very, very difficult to grasp everything that the author was trying to communicate. So I think that is one plus for the movie to make it easier.
All right. Our producers are telling me we're running out of time,
Oh.
so let's recap for our movies. Let's start quickly the cons, the pros. Let's start with the good first.
Pros?
The pros of this movie, Wide Sargasso Sea.
Mm-hmm.
Let's recap them. Could you tell me? I
Setting,
remember the
the
setting,
environment.
the environment.
They use the setting very effectively, especially as it plays to the emotions of the characters at certain points in time in the movie. Other pros.
Yeah, in terms of setting, it also equally portrayed the time that it was set in. You're saying like the old 18th century
Yeah.
time,
It was
the whole post-emancipation period.
Yeah.
You're saying they equally portray that. In terms of to get the black and white, I don't know. But
the racial tensions.
Yeah, do you think
they tried their best? Again, to me, the first part in the book did a very good job of outlining the racial tensions at that time, especially as it pertains to the white Creoles who were left there after slavery was. Because the movie glossed over it, it wasn't as explicit. They had a few lines tossed in there to kind of hint at it to the audience, but it wasn't as keenly felt. It wasn't this cloud that was overhanging everything like it was in the book to me.
so? I think that's more of a con. And from our conversation, is saying that it's better to read the book. You know what I'm saying?
I think you should.
Could you suggest what you would to our viewers? What is it as a TV person, a music book person? It is amazing that you, the TV person, saying it's better to read the book. Can you tell me why? Just
more detail, more authenticity. It's just better. Just read the book. The movie.
It doesn't give the essence that the author.
It wasn't
in
a
your
bad
opinion,
movie.
Yeah.
But I think the book is way better than the movie is.
All right. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, from renowned TV watcher Sasha Archer on our show, What's the Tea?